In the land of Jericho, 1406 BC, Rahab, the most beautiful woman in the city, danced. It was her night, her feast. As the crowd roared with admiration, she knew she had captured more than their cheers. She had left a mark in their hearts, one they would never forget. Far from the feast of Rahab in Jericho, a divine message was delivered to Joshua, the son of Nun. The air around him thick with purpose, Joshua bowed in reverence before the angel of the Lord. The command was clear: send 2 spies to the land of Jericho. But why, you may ask, would the angel of the Lord come to Joshua in such a time? Why command the utter destruction of Jericho? The answer lies within the walls of Jericho. There, the people worshipped idols, offering their hearts and lives to false gods. They practiced unspeakable acts before the face of the Lord: idolatry, deceit, and wickedness at every turn. Their prayers were empty, and their hearts were cold to the truth. The Lord had seen enough. Joshua, with a heart set firm and unwavering, took the words the Lord had given to him in secret. He knew that that moment was not the time to bargain with the angel of the Lord. So the next day, he gathered the elders of Israel, and there the mandate was given. Salmon and his companion were chosen, entrusted with the task of spying on the wicked land known as Jericho. Their journey was to begin the next day, but the walls of Jericho stood mightily as their obstacle. Joshua was not ignorant of the mighty walls of Jericho. He knew well that these towering walls were no ordinary fortress. Nothing or no nation had ever breached them. Beyond those walls lay a ruthless king, a heartless army, ready to defend their city with bloodshed. The stakes were high, and the mission deadly. But Joshua knew one thing above all: the God of Israel was with them. With that unshakable conviction, he called Salmon and his companion aside. His voice was steady, but the tension in the air was palpable. This was no ordinary task, it was a calling. As their leader, he offered them the support they needed, not just in strength but in faith. Their journey ahead was fraught with peril, but he reminded them that they were not alone. Salmon and his companion knew they were about to step into the lion's den. The walls of Jericho loomed like a death sentence, and beyond them, an enemy too powerful to face alone. Yet, in the face of certain peril, they did something remarkable. Instead of rushing forward with blind courage, they turned to the only one who could save them, the Lord God of Israel. In the stillness of the night, they knelt. With hearts weighed down by the burden of their mission, they poured out their fears and their hopes in desperate prayer. The winds whispered around them, but there was no answer, only the weight of uncertainty. Their fate, now resting in the hands of God, hung by a fragile thread. Would their prayers be enough to shield them from the dangers ahead? Could they survive what lay beyond the walls of Jericho? All these were the questions that went through their hearts. But on the other side of those dreaded walls stood Rahab, the harlot. She was not just any harlot. She was a successful one, whose house lay upon the very wall of Jericho. In a city known for its wickedness and pride, Rahab had carved out a life of her own, surviving, thriving, amidst a sea of deceit and idolatry. Her position, perched on the edge of the Great Wall, made her a woman of influence in the land of Jericho. She was a woman who had seen much, heard much, and perhaps knew more than the people around her cared to admit. But what lay beneath her profession? What made her to see beyond wickedness and idolatry of her people? Was she simply a product of her circumstances, or was there more to Rahab than met the eye? Rahab had heard of the God of Israel long before that fateful day. She had heard whispers in the streets, tales carried by the wind of the miraculous deeds he had done, how he parted the Red Sea to lead his people out of bondage, how he struck down nations with his mighty hand. To the people of Jericho, these were just stories. But for Rahab, they were more than that. She knew, deep within her, that the God of Israel was no ordinary God. He was mighty. He was powerful. For years, Rahab kept her beliefs to herself. She knew better than to voice her thoughts in a city so consumed by idolatry and pride. But little did she know, the winds of fate were shifting. Something was about to change. The city of Jericho, her city, would never be the same again. God kept his plans hidden from the people of Jericho. Not even their great king, nor the mighty sorcerers, could foresee the doom that loomed just beyond their walls. They lived in a state of unshaken confidence, believing their city, their strength, was untouchable. Not even Rahab, the harlot who lived high upon the walls, could see what was coming. All she knew was that there was a God in Israel, a God who had done mighty deeds beyond the reach of their idols and the gods of other nations. A God whose power could not be rivaled. What she didn't know, though, was that God was watching. Her small, quiet belief, hidden in the depths of her heart, was the very thing he sought. It was all he needed to begin his plans that no one in Jericho, not even Rahab, could yet imagine. The two spies bid the camp of Israel farewell, their mission clear, yet their hearts weighed down with uncertainty. They passed through other lands, taking note of every detail, careful to stay out of sight. Their task was one of the utmost danger, and their success depended on secrecy. As they neared the great gates of Jericho, the looming walls seemed impenetrable. How would they enter unnoticed? How would they gather the information they needed without being discovered? What they didn't know was that God had already gone ahead of them. Unseen, he was at work in the heart of Rahab, preparing her for the moment she would open her door to them. Her heart had been quietly softened, her faith unknowingly made ready for what was about to unfold. By divine leading, the two spies found themselves standing at her door that night, unaware that the refuge they sought had already been prepared for them. Word spread swiftly through the city. 2 Israelite men had been seen at Rahab's house. Spies, sent to search out the land. The news reached the king of Jericho, and without hesitation, he dispatched his guards with a single order: seize them. But Rahab was faster. She saw the guards approaching, their armor glinting beneath the moonlight, their footsteps echoing against the stone paths. Without a second thought, she rushed the spies to her rooftop, hiding them beneath stalks of hay. Her heart pounded, but her resolve stood firm. She had just heard it from their own mouths. Their God was coming to destroy Jericho. The king's men banged at her door. "Bring out the men who came to you," they demanded. Rahab stepped out calmly and said, "Yes, they were here, but they've left. If you hurry, you may still catch them." And with that, she sent them chasing shadows. When the coast was clear, she climbed to the roof and uncovered the spies. It was then that Rahab did the unthinkable. She pleaded, not for herself alone, but for her entire family. "I've shown you mercy," she said. "Now swear to me by your God that you'll spare my father, my mother, my brothers and sisters, everyone who belongs to me, when your God comes to destroy this city." The spies agreed. "Hang this scarlet cord from your window," they said, "and gather your family under this roof. If they're with you, they will be spared. But if they step outside, we cannot promise their safety." Rahab nodded, clutching the scarlet cord. But before they left, she gave them one more word of wisdom: hide in the hill country for 3 days. The king's men will return from their pursuit. Then it will be safe. The spies listened. They escaped into the mountains, hidden in a cave for 3 days. And when the search had ended and the roads were clear, they slipped quietly away, back to the Israelite camp, with a story that would change everything.
Rahab, with unwavering faith, placed the scarlet cord on her window as instructed by the 2 Israelite spies, bracing herself for the inevitable day of reckoning. The air in Jericho was thick with tension, and the walls loomed high as though daring the Israelites to act. Rahab's heart beat with both fear and hope. She had obeyed the spies and trusted in the God of Israel, but the coming days would determine her fate. Soon, the Israelite army appeared, their mighty troops marching in perfect formation, ready to do the Lord's bidding. Under the leadership of Joshua, the Israelites began their task, marching silently around the city walls. On the first day, nothing happened. The people of Jericho, unaware of the divine power at work, watched with curiosity. The second day passed in the same way: silence, tension, and nothing but the march of the Israelites. Meanwhile, Rahab had already gathered her family and brought them under her roof. She knew that her faith was the only thing standing between them and destruction. The days passed in silence, the Israelites marching around the city walls day after day. By the third day, Rahab's family was safely hidden, waiting in the shelter of her home. Each day she glanced anxiously at the walls, waiting for a sign, but nothing changed. The cycle of marching continued until the sixth day, each day the same, each day without consequence. Then, on the seventh day, everything changed. The Israelites marched around the city 7 times, their steps shaking the ground beneath them. On the final lap, Joshua gave the command to shout, and the people's voices rose in unison, a shout that carried the weight of the Almighty's power. As their voices reverberated through the city, something incredible happened. The massive walls of Jericho, which had stood unyielding for generations, began to crumble and fall. Panic swept through the city like wildfire. The once proud walls of Jericho shattered, leaving the city vulnerable and exposed. The land of Jericho, the proud stronghold of the Canaanites, was now under the judgment of God. In the heat of the battle, as the Israelite army rushed to complete their conquest, Joshua did not forget the report of the 2 spies, Salmon and his companion. He knew their mission was not just to gather intelligence, but also to ensure the safety of Rahab and her family. Joshua called for Salmon, commanding him to find Rahab and bring her and her loved ones to the Israelite camp. Salmon, unwavering in his duty, followed the order. He quickly located Rahab's house amidst the chaos, and there he ensured her safety. Rahab and her family were ushered to the Israelite camp, where they found refuge, safe from the destruction that had swallowed the rest of Jericho. The battle ended, and Jericho was no more. The once great city lay in ruins, but Rahab and her family were untouched. They were part of the few who had been spared, not by their own strength, but by their faith in the God of Israel. But the story didn't end there. God had more in store for Rahab, for she had shown her faith in him before she had even met him. She had believed in the power of the God of Israel, even in the face of overwhelming odds. God was not done with Rahab. He chose to reward her for her trust, for her courage, and for her unwavering faith. Rahab was brought into the fold of Israel, and in time she married Salmon. Together they became the ancestors of a lineage that would change the world. Their son Boaz grew to be a man of great character, known for his integrity and compassion. Boaz later married Ruth, a Moabite widow, and together they became the grandparents of King David. From King David's line came Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. Thus Rahab, the former harlot of Jericho, became a key part of the genealogy of Christ, her faith and obedience marking the beginning of a divine legacy. What started as a simple act of trust in the God of Israel became a cornerstone in the unfolding story of redemption for all of humanity. Thank you for watching this powerful story of redemption. We hope it has inspired you and deepened your understanding. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. If this message touched you, please consider sharing this video with a friend or family member today. Let's remind each other of God's mighty acts and share his blessings with those around us.